So if you look at this diagram, we're going to try to cover slowly, because this diagram, if you understand, this will be your roadmap to processing all emotional issues in your life. It gives us the perspective of how the universe comes into us through our knowledge acquiring faculties, and how we have a great opportunity to process all the information that is coming to us. So if you see, this person is actually looking, that this is a metaphorical picture, okay? So you see, we're looking at a tree. So if you see, we're looking at the tree through our eyes, through our sense of sight. In this diagram, I taught this maybe 2 years ago, and then they created this chart. The students created this chart more recently. So the students will know how, how to process all of this information that is coming inside of them. Okay, so with the eyes, we're looking at the tree, and we are able to determine, we're going to try to determine what is happening between your eyes and the tree. So that first exchange of you looking at something or glancing at something, that energy is called prana. Prana is the via media, or our communication method. When we talk to each other, what we're doing is exchanging prana. So prana is the biospiritual energy. And so when we look with our eyes to a green tree, your eyes, there's two cells in your eyes, the rod cells and the cone cells. So these two cells, the rod cells and the cone cells, they are in your eyes. When we look at the tree is not green. The color is not on the tree, the color is in your eyes. So when the sun reflects on the green leaves of the tree and reflects in our eyes, and the two cells pick up that signal, that energy frequency with the reflection of the sun on the tree into the two cells into our eyes. And then you're able to see the tree, which is if the leaves are green, and if the depletion of prana on the leaves, then you may see it yellow or red, depending on the pranic frequency that is being reflected by the sun onto the tree, into your eyes, and your eyes will be able to see the different pranic frequency of the object. So that connection, that energy exchange is called prana. Then that information of what you saw with your eyes, then it goes to a place called manas, the mind. It creates a certain sensation in our brain, and it creates feelings, and then you start thinking, yes, this is tree, this is an oak tree, this is a banyan tree, this is a, what is a famous tree in Belgium? So then your mind, now it is, the information is seen with your senses. Now the mind is seeing it and trying to understand what this tree is. What kind of a tree is it? Is it a banana tree? Is it a guava tree? Is it a coconut tree? And then from the mind, the information gets transferred to the intelligence. The intelligence starts to acknowledge, based on the information that it has, it starts to see if it's a banana tree or a coconut tree or a guava tree. So the intelligence is a reservoir of information, and it starts to rationalize. And then it goes to, from buddhi, it goes to smriti. Smriti is called recognition. You remember from past information that you have seen this tree when you're traveling in Hawaii. And then you start to put the pieces together based on your smriti, from your remembrance, from your previous recognition. And then it goes a little deeper when you go to the chitta. Chitta is the subconscious state. You may have seen it when you're 5 years old, but you forgot about it. That you saw this tree when you were 5 years old. So chitta is like the basement of our mind. Just like everybody has a home, and inside their home they have a basement where they store everything from your childhood. You lock it up in boxes and you store it in the shelves. and you don't even remember where you left it, but it's somewhere in the basement. And the next layer is called the ahankara, the false ego. And then after that is the atman, false ego, everyone understand, we discussed it. And then the atman, the beautiful self, the spark, the soul within this body. So who is seeing? What is being seen is the question right here. You see, the atman is the person who's observing through the ahankara, seeing through the chitta, through the smriti, buddhi, manas. There's so many layers that it is seeing through, so many lenses that it is seeing through. So prana to atman, this is the path of spiritual realization, prana to atman. And when you see from the atman out, that is when that is the stage when you become a yogi, where you can see everything properly. So I don't want to explain too much right now, because this chart is our life. And this happens when you think of something, it's immediately prana kicks in, the energy kicks in, and it goes to the mind, and then the intelligence is trying to rationalize, and then the smriti is trying to think of everything that you have, and then dig deep down into your chitta. And how does the false pride feel about this? And then finally, the atman. So just imagine looking at a tree is a split second action with your eyes, and it has to go through the full process. And sometimes you see through the prana and then it gets stuck on the mind. It never goes to the process of buddhi, smriti, chitta, ahankar. It just goes prana, manas, and the atman. So it just sees a very, very limited perspective of what the reality is. Say, for example, I see Arjuna. I see him for a second, he says a word, and in my mind, I immediately have judged him. I don't even give him a chance to express who he is, what he is thinking, what does he want. I immediately judge him because I get stuck in the mind, from prana to mana. So in this chart, it gives us, this is a very old chart, it gives us the roadmap of how knowledge is acquired, and how every time we have an interaction, there's an exchange of prana, there's an exchange of emotions, there's an energetic exchange that happens. So how do we process that? This chart gives us very clear. From the prana, when you have an exchange with someone, it goes to the mind, and the mind immediately magnifies it, because the function of the mind is thinking, feeling, and willing. And then we actually tend to get stuck right there. See, if Arjuna comes to me and Arjuna says something to me, if Arjuna tells me I cannot play soccer as good as him, then that's all he needs to say. That little exchange, then my mind will cook up a very beautiful story. I will think, why did Arjuna say this? And this one exchange, one sentence of exchange, I will put it in my mind, and I will think about it, and I will magnify it. Why is he doing it? I'm better than him. And my ego is going to constantly magnify this one exchange that Arjuna and me had. I don't let that exchange go beyond the phase of my mind. I rather let it go and just sit there in my mind. And then I will hold it for year after year, year after year, and I will go to my grave thinking why Arjuna was so painful when he just told me I couldn't play soccer, and I knew I was the best soccer player, because that's what my ego had told me. So we didn't go through the full cycle. We did not take that information to my intelligence to ask myself, Arjuna said this. Did he actually say it to me? Or did he say it to my mind? Or did he talk to my intelligence? Who did he speak to? We do not ask these questions. The reaction comes from the mind, because you just see, you're here, and then you immediately want to react. On the first level, we are quick to react. We do not let our intelligence to figure out what happened. We do not go back into our smriti to see if this had happened before, and how did I react then? And then we do not go to the chitta to see, maybe it's from my previous life that I'm such an angry person and I'm reacting to this situation without proper processing. And then we have to go through the whole process to figure out if we are responding from our mind or if we're responding from our false ego. Have we even gone through the whole process to find out why am I reacting the way I'm reacting for such a small thing? So that is why we're doing these classes so that we can, oh my gosh, so that we can understand and have a basic roadmap to see what is it that is reacting. Is it reacting from the mind? Is it reacting from our based on our past experiences? And we just in the process we completely escape the principle of our intelligence playing a very key role in understanding this whole process. So I want to actually open this up for a discussion because I can give you so much information on this chart. Our whole life is happening from prana to the Atman. Our whole life is happening right there. So there's a lot of information. Everything we talk about in our class is from this beautiful chart, from our sense knowledge acquiring faculties to how we react from the self. So I want to open it up for anyone, anything that doesn't make sense, and then we can break down from there. Please. I have a question for all of you. Does this chart make, I mean, I know it sounds very complicated, but if you study this chart I've given you now, you see when you're looking with the eyes, what sensations it's creating, and then it's going to the mind. Are we using our intelligence to process it? Are we going to the reservoir of information that we have? And you would be very, very surprised that if you just follow this chart, you will know exactly where you are. And every time you're about to react, you will know exactly where you're reacting from. And you'll be able to catch yourself. Sometimes people go through a whole lifetime just going from prana to the manas. And they just, someone said something to them that was not very nice. Then they just carry that without processing it. They carry it for the rest of their life. And it is so sad because it's such a heavy baggage. This is a roadmap to be to processing emotions in life so you can actually be free from the mind that is completely out of control. So does this chart make any sense? Does any one of you? I first want to, I'm going to be speaking on this chart quite a lot because I would like to get you memorized. I'm going to jump from one house to the other house to the other house, and you'll realize how they're so beautifully interconnected. And you can gauge yourself and catch yourself before you react. Okay. So the mind reacts and the Atman will respond. So if you take the first one out and the last one out, you will see it comes to 5. So this is where it's all happening in our life. How are we able to process the information that we're gathering through our eyes, through our ears, through our nose, through smelling, and through the sense of touch? How are we gathering this information? How are we processing this information? The reason we spend so much time discussing about the mind is because, unfortunately, many of us, we do not go beyond the function of the mind. We do not take our exchanges and interactions to process why was Arjuna saying something to me? Why did he say it? The question will be asked by the intelligence, but the mind will answer the question. So therefore, we have to really, really make sure that intelligence answers that question by analyzing that maybe Arjuna was in a bad mood. Maybe he didn't mean it that way. Maybe he didn't sleep last night. There's so many reasons there could be why Arjuna said that I was not as good as him in soccer. It's such a simple thing, but my ego was hurt. So if you look from the mind, it skips buddhi, it skips intelligence, it skips smriti, it skips chitta, and it goes straight to ahankar. So it doesn't even go through the process. It just skips 4 different layers of processing the information. When we breathe in, what are we breathing in? Who is that breath? Where is it coming from? What is the source of that breath? And how to
Absolutely.
elongate, stretch that breath. You know, like we chant these prayers, Yontaf Pravesha Mama Vacham Imam Prashuttam. This verse is showing respect and gratitude to prana. That is divine, that is God. You know? So